solidarity became the main pillar of strength for us as we sailed across the Mediterranean Sea. And of course, as a journalist, I never steered far from my duty. The crucial part was to report the unreported and present the truth about the struggle faced by Palestinians spanning over 6 decades. Merely 5 hours before the assault, Marmara was placed on high alert. From a distance, I could vaguely see 2 small red dots flickering like fireflies flying at night. And at that time, every one of us, I think if you guys on board Marmara, you can already smell danger. Not long later, we were informed that the lights came from a fleet of Israeli battleships. Everyone on board was restless, but we decided to stay vigilant for what seemed to be uncertainty. Much has been said about the state-of-the-art military equipment, but being subjected to the real thing was the last thing anyone would want to experience. There were 4 battleships, 3 helicopters, and more than 25 Zodiac boats involved in the hijacking of Marmara, and later we learned that 2 submarines were also part of the plot. The attack took place on international waters on a ship loaded with hundreds of unarmed international activists, the oldest being 88 years old and the youngest not even 1, I guess about around 2 months old. It started with percussion grenades, stun grenades, and loud bombardment was aggressively directed to the activists, and live bullets were flying from all corners. A commotion erupted, followed by wails and screams, breaking the silence of the morning. I saw several severely injured people being dragged down the staircase, which was stained with blood. Some were unconscious, and a group of doctors were forced to double up their efforts to save the life of these civilians, using the limited medical equipment available. And sadly, the otherwise calm Marmara was transformed into a war zone of sorts. Innocent people were tormented to the brutality of the Israelis, and those who were injured had to hold on their dear life amidst the total chaos. Those who had the courage to face up the Israeli commandos begged to the letter to stop the assault, and of course, they ignored. And journalists and media practitioners were faced by an act of brutality, uncivilized manner towards mankind. A friend, a brother from neighboring country Indonesia, was shot on his right chest while he was snapping pictures of the tragedy on the upper deck. Not long after that, the Israelis started ransacking the ship. All electronic devices and equipments were confiscated. You name it, from our laptops, notebooks, mobile phones, satellite phones, memory card reader, memory card tapes, external hard drive, and even my pen were taken away. I, along with other passengers, was handcuffed, using cable tied, and experienced what seemed to be the longest day of our life. Everyone seemed confused and dazed. I had lost the sense of time and left my fate in the hand of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. By the time the ship docked at Israel's Ashdod port, we disembarked and were completely disoriented. We were heavily escorted by Israel officials to the next point, where we were forced to sign off a document, and of course I didn't understand the content. It was written in Hebrew. I was anxious and confused, anxious to see what would happen next, and confused with the notion that my fate at that point of time lied in the hands of the Israelis. And of course the question later on is, what's next for us Malaysians? The thought that Malaysia doesn't have any diplomatic ties with Israel scares me. What then could save us from this cruelty? And the question, of course, when and how? These questions raced through my head, but I was too exhausted to entertain the thoughts. And my hopes for release were dashed, especially during the interrogation process, which took place in a small enclosed tent by 2 Israeli authorities. I was humiliated when they asked me to strip naked. Then they started bombarding bombarding me same question again and again, why I joined this mission. As if on cue, on the fifth same question, I answered, I'm a journalist, I can be anywhere I want. After we finished with the interrogation process, we were transported to Beersheba prison, where we were held until we were eventual release and extradition. The brutality, mental torture continued for about 16 hours in my 5226 cell. With me was one of the Malaysian activists and one Indonesian journalist. The former was, of course, little reserved in his attempt to grasp the tragedy, while our Indonesian friend was more inquisitive. And he asked me if we ever get to see our family back home again. I don't know what to say, I just smiled and remained silent. On the day of our release, we were told to board a bus, and I knew that the ordeal would soon be over. And once we entered King Hussein Bridge at the Jordanian border, I smelled freedom. Sheer joy and merriment were apparent on the faces of the captives. I was even glad to see the rest of the Malaysian activists who were earlier separated from our group, and I was mostly glad to see our cameraman, Shamsul Kamal Latif, after more than 24 hours being separated from him, as he was taken away and taken to a different prison. And now, over a month later, Israel is still consistent in presenting its version of what had happened during the raid. The regime is still steadfast in spinning similar propaganda in order to succeed the Israeli domination and exercise its policy, Israelization policy on the Palestinian soil. And of course, the media plays a crucial role in feeding the truth to our audience. It is also critical to inform viewers and the reality from our perspective and not rely solely on the propaganda machinery. We also need to concretize steps to usher in a fresh new dimension and approach to counter the Zionist regime. We should move forward and chart a roadmap in mapping this mission clearly, utilize every single possible platform and conventional and also new media technology. Forums and conferences, as well as intellectual discourse, should be consistent in our aim to create awareness about the cruelty of this regime. And again, this movement should have its nucleus not just in Malaysia and Muslim country, but also in every country, while increased pressure on Zionist regime sponsors as well as their allies should be imposed for the freedom of Gaza. The regime may have confiscated my memory card, your memory cards, tapes, and even cameras, but they can't steal from us is our noble aim to assist in all our means to make a better living for our fellow families in Gaza. The tragedy of Marmara and Rachel Corrie should be the cornerstone that is fundamentally important for the citizens of the world to end this illegal siege on Gaza. It may still be a long and winding journey, but if we put our hearts and minds together, inshallah, God's willing, victory may just be ours one day. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ashwat. Thank you for that blow-by-blow account on what happened on Marmara. We were all very happy to see that you all came home safe. Next it will be Dr. Hassan Hussein Usal. Since he will be using an interpreter, I will allow for about 13 minutes, if you don't mind, then to allow for the interpretation. So if I may present to you, Dr. Hassan.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Selamun Aleyküm. Bu güzide topluluğa hitap etmek benim için bir şereftir. Size Türkiye'den, Türkiye insanından, İHH Genel Başkanı Bülent Yıldırım'dan selamlar getirdim.
First of all, I am really great to be honored being here, and such a great, unique community here. I would like to